Using modern forensic technology, scientists are about to test evidence from history's first widely publicized alien abduction, Betty Hill's dress.
The ETs grasped her. They wrapped their long fingers around her shoulders.
DNA analysis may finally determine if the substance on the dress is direct evidence of an alien life form.
This dress may be proof of entities from another planet.
And later, a relic of the Rocky Mountain demon wolf is rediscovered.
It's conceivable that a remnant of some long ago unknown species could survive.
Experts study its remains to try and find conclusive evidence that the demon wolf is still out there.
Hey guys, I'm Hannah, your resident Scream Queen and full-time horror junkie, and welcome to Panic TV. I'm from California, so sunshine by day, but jump scares by night. This is my happy place.
The vast archives at the University of New Hampshire house historic documents, ancient artifacts, and the only known item on Earth thought to contain material from beings not of this world. A simple homemade dress is the strongest proof for the existence of alien life.
The dress really is the most tangible evidence we have of the first documented alien abduction.
This is crime scene evidence of someone taken against their will and being violated. This case has become an iconic event, so much so that the New Hampshire Historical Society has erected a historical marker in the White Mountains of New Hampshire to commemorate this event.
In 1961, Betty and Barney Hill were abducted by extraterrestrials.
The Betty and Barney Hill close encounter and abduction is really the cornerstone of UFO evidence today.
The case was thoroughly investigated by the government, but rumors surface of a cover-up. The Hills encounter has inspired debate in the scientific community for 5 decades. The controversy swirls around a mysterious pink powder found on Betty's dress. In the 1960s, laboratory techniques were not sufficiently advanced to identify this strange forensic evidence. Some say that there are simple explanations for the tears and degraded condition of the dress Betty was wearing. But others believe Betty couldn't have doctored the dress for DNA testing, which was not even in existence at that time. Modern science will dissect the dress by looking at the tears and discoloration and attempt to analyze traces of the pink powder for alien DNA. To fully understand all the evidence the dress contains, one must first understand what happened to Betty and Barney Hill that fateful night. Betty and Barney Hill enjoy their last leisurely morning on vacation together. Just 16 months into their marriage, this trip is a long overdue honeymoon for the couple. Before beginning their trek home, Betty changes into her new dress.
Betty's dress was shades of blue. It was, she said, her favorite blue dress.
As the couple drive US Route 3 through New Hampshire's White Mountains, Betty notices something on the horizon.
Betty had seen this new light in the sky. It swooped in and hovered only 100 feet above their vehicle.
Barney pulled over and got out of his car with his binoculars and got a real good look at it. And it was then that he ran back to the car and said, "We got to get the hell out of here because this object is now coming towards them."
They heard a series of beeping or buzzing sounds that was code-like. They felt a tingling sensation pass through their bodies. The car vibrated.
This would be the last conscious memory the couple would have of the abduction. When the Hills wake up, Betty and Barney are on an unfamiliar road.
They were 35 miles south of where they felt they had been only a moment before. And they realized 2 hours' time was missing.
They were both wearing watches, and they stopped.
Betty's arms and legs are covered in dirt, and her favorite dress soiled and torn in many places. Back at home, Betty feels violated and confused. Not knowing what to do with her tattered, stained dress, she places it back in her closet.
Betty did contact the authorities, if you will, the United States Air Force.
The day after the encounter, Betty gives a report to Major Paul W. Henderson, the lead investigator for the government's secret Project Blue Book. Started in 1952, Project Blue Book is a systematic study of unidentified flying objects conducted by the U.S. Air Force. It took Project Blue Book 2 years to produce a final report on the Hills sighting, claiming that there was insufficient evidence to determine what they saw.
They kind of pawned it off that she was looking at Jupiter or Venus or something because they were driving late at night and they were fatigued. But that's not what happened.
What the Hills described was much larger in size and speeding through the sky.
I believe unequivocally that the Betty and Barney Hill case is a legitimate abduction. They were taken aboard a spacecraft, and I think that they were physically assaulted.
By disregarding their statements and ignoring the physical evidence, is the government trying to cover something up?
I knew my aunt and my uncle very, very well. My Aunt Betty was a social worker for the state of New Hampshire. Barney worked for the post office. They were straight-up people with a very good reputation in their community. They were church-going people. They would never have confabulated or concocted a story like this.
The test results could be definitive evidence that the government is hiding the truth. In the small town of Ennis, Montana, lies the Madison Valley Museum. The museum showcases local artifacts of historical importance. But it's what's on display in the back room that will blow your mind. A mysterious beast that locals claim haunts their dreams and prowls their ranches.
This thing, this creature that you see here, was shot in 1886 by Israel Hutchins, and it's been given quite a few different names. One name has been Ringdocus, one is Sharkawarkan.
Others call it the Rocky Mountain Demon Wolf. Shot in 1886, mounted and put on display, this is the only physical evidence of the creature's existence. But this is not a known species.
When they'd seen it in the distance, it just carried itself differently than a normal wolf. It was a slunking, a little more of a broke down, slunking kind of thing than a wolf. And then when they saw it up close, of course, it was quite different.
It has an odd-shaped head with a narrow snout and sloping back like a hyena. A matted and striped black coat enfolds its muscular frame. Gigantic in size, ferocious in nature, the animal has terrorized settlers and livestock for centuries.
There are a bunch of legends in the United States about dog-like or wolf-like predators that are super large, unusual in some way, and have supernatural aspects. And there's also a whole body of European folklore about very large wolf-like black dogs called shucks that, have glowing red eyes and have supernatural attributes.
A supernatural predator with the ability to survive attacks by arrows and bullets, and a call unlike any animal on Earth. This creature may be more than just legend. Modern killings in 2005 and 2006 reveal grisly evidence that it could still be on the prowl. Dr. Ross Hutchins is a zoologist and grandson of Israel Hutchins. In 1977, he sends a detailed description of the creature, including a picture, to the Smithsonian Institute. Their experts are unable to identify it, but give it the scientific name, 𝑨𝑉𝑑𝑬𝑹𝑵𝑛𝑦. The beastly specimen is never tested. In the late 1970s, the museum housing it closes, and it is lost in a back archive for decades. It is rediscovered in November 2007. Now, for the first time, experts will carefully examine the monster, attempting to determine that this is no mere wolf. For centuries, a monstrous canine has stalked the mountains of Montana, a beast unlike anything known to science, with a cry that doesn't seem of this world. As modern-day livestock killings surge, experts look to the only specimen in the U.S. for answers. The indigenous native people were the first to witness the supernatural beast.
Before the coming of the white man, there were many kinds of mysterious animals that lived in this land.
Lance Foster, an anthropologist and Iowa Indian descendant, grew up learning about the mystical animal.
Something would come in at night and steal their dogs. So they began to call it 𝑭𝑛𝑘𝑤𝑎𝑟𝑎𝑘𝑖, something that carries off dogs.
The 𝑭𝑛𝑘𝑤𝑎𝑟𝑎𝑘𝑖 is a powerful creature, unlike any known living animal. Its hide is nearly impenetrable, and it can survive attacks by arrows and bullets.
They finally laid a trap one night, and they waited around their lodges, and sure enough, they heard a yelp, and they ran over that way, and there was an odd animal, a huge animal, but it didn't look like a wolf. These are people who knew what wolves looked like. It was not anything they had seen before. So they chased it, shooting at it, and the arrows would bounce off the skin.
The first documented sightings of the Rocky Mountain demon wolf by settlers began in the 1880s.
My great-grandfather, Israel Hutchins, moved to the Madison Valley. He was a young man in his 30s. The area they came to, it was a remote mountainous area. They basically had to survive on what they had.
Just like all pioneers at the time, Israel had to guard his livestock from the most vicious and constant threat.
The wolf is a killing machine. They kill to live. They're a predator, and ranchers consider them a threat to their livelihood. And you would kill them before they wiped you out.
But an even deadlier creature appears, more dangerous than a wolf, It has glowing red eyes and kills dozens of animals at a time with its powerful bone-crushing strength. But its call is what terrified people.
The first time they ever heard the beast, they'd heard him howling off in the distance. It sounded more like a scream instead of the deeper howl. It was a little higher pitched, and it just got their attention immediately because it was something they'd never heard before.
The creature grows more brazen, taking sheep and dogs on a nightly basis. The townsfolk know they must take action.
My great-grandfather knew he had to kill the beast in order to make sure that his family and his livestock were going to be safe.
With grisly present-day livestock killings on the rise, can this unique specimen solve a mystery that has been going on for generations?
Is it a subspecies? Is it a mutant? What is it?
Four months after Americans first traveled to space, Betty and Barney Hill have a close encounter of their own. And scientists have hard evidence. The dress Betty Hill was wearing that night. The niece of Betty and Barney Hill, Kathleen Martin, has intimate knowledge of their case.
I was 13 years old. I arrived home from school in the afternoon, and my mother told me that my aunt and uncle had a close encounter with a flying saucer. When Betty put the dress on the morning of September 19, 1961, it was in perfect condition. But when she arrived home, the dress was torn from waist to hemline.
But the couple recall nothing of what took place. An unexplained loss of 2 hours.
There were hours of missing time. They should have arrived home long before they did, when it was still dark, early morning. They didn't arrive at their house until well after the sun was up. And they knew something was not right. And neither one of their watches were working. They both had stopped.
It became frightening to me after Betty and Barney realized that they had missing time, that there was evidence that something else happened to them.
Increasingly distressed about the missing details, the Hills seek out Dr. Benjamin Simon, a Boston psychiatrist who uses hypnosis to help the couple recover repressed memories. A horrifying story emerges, filling in the period of amnesia.
Under hypnosis, Barney revealed that he sees three entities, three beings, underneath the craft coming towards them.
They were there, touching me.
Betty later discovered that those tears occurred when she attempted to fight off these abductors, these ETs, who were trying to take her onto the craft. Betty did not go willingly.
The two captors were on either side of her. They had their hands underneath her arms, and they escorted her to the threshold of the craft. Betty didn't want to go in, so she fought like heck.
Oh my God, I can't look. Oh, I can't look. Oh, but I have to look.
Barney's shoes corroborate the account of a struggle.
The tops of his shoes were all scuffed up as if he had been dragged aboard the ship. In his hypnosis, he talks about being dragged.
Betty describes her captors as inhuman.
3.5, 4 feet tall, spindly in appearance, a bulbous head, large eyes.
This is Betty and Barney's description of the leader. It's a forensic painting. You can see the large wraparound eyes. The iris filled up most of this area. Flat faces, oversized cranium, tiny upturned nose, no hair, a slit for a mouth. This is the being that they had the most contact with. He was the one who communicated with them.
These creatures physically put their hands on Betty and Barney Hill.
The aliens were not gentle.
The zipper was torn at the back of her dress. There's a 1-inch tear in the thick zipper fabric. There's a 2-inch tear in the stitching at the top of that zipper. It was torn when the examiner removed the dress from her. He apparently didn't know how to unzip a zipper. He attempted to pull the zipper fabric apart.
On board the ship, the aliens medically examined the Hills.
Betty describes a needle being pushed into her navel. Barney describes physical contact with instruments that are being manipulated by these gray creatures.
Their skin is scraped, and samples are taken of their hair, nails, and reproductive tissues. After the encounter in 1961, Betty takes the dress out of her closet and is shocked by what she sees.
There was a pink powdery substance on the dress that hadn't been there when she put it in. She hung the dress on her clothesline. The pink powder blew away, unfortunately.
But the unusual stains remain. Betty realizes the dress might still hold some physical evidence of her abduction. Some speculate that physical contact with the aliens caused the unknown pink staining on the dress.
Betty stated that the ETs grasped her by her upper arms, and they wrapped their long fingers around her shoulders. And that's the area of the dress that is so deeply stained with pink that it actually penetrated the fabric itself.
Some scientists who examined the dress blame the tears on a fall when Betty blacks out and loses time. However, none of them can explain what kind of residue could have created the unique discoloration. Experts are about to run DNA tests to try and uncover the truth. The abduction of Betty and Barney Hill is a harrowing tale of kidnap on board an extraterrestrial craft. Half nightmare, half science fiction.
As many times as I've seen the dress, even today when I look at it, I sort of visualize what Betty went through that caused the tears in that dress.
Something happened that turned their world upside down. You know that something very, very serious happened to these people.
But this alien encounter left behind hard evidence that reinforces the curious events. An unknown pink residue found on Betty's dress.
Betty stated that the entities wrapped their hands around her upper arms and shoulders. The pink powdery substance penetrated this fabric. You can see how discolored it is here. But if we go deeper into the dress, you can see that that area is not discolored.
Scientists all over the U.S. test the dress, including Pinelandia Biophysical Research Laboratory and the chemistry department at the University of Cincinnati. Scientists find elements on the dress that are terrestrial: animal hair, spider blood, soil. But the strange pink staining puzzles them, as it appears to be high in undetermined organic hydrocarbons, which are abundant in the atmospheres of Jupiter and Saturn. The extensive discoloration is obvious in two areas, along the top half of the dress and under the sleeves.
There was an attempt to create the kind of staining on Betty's dress.
Scientists use several methods in an effort to duplicate the color change, and the results are alarming. The dress is subjected to bleach, acid, and UV light, but none are successful in reproducing the discoloration. Whatever caused the stains is not an earthly chemical or compound. The next crucial step is for one of the most prestigious genetics schools in the country to test the Betty Hill dress and get to the bottom of this otherworldly material. After a recent livestock slaughter in the Midwest, experts theorize the culprit is the legendary Rocky Mountain demon wolf. Early pioneers first see the animal in the 1880s.
Israel Hutchins is my great-grandfather. He was awoken by a stirring of the animals in the corrals outside, got up, saw the animal, shoots, and mortally wounds the animal. This is the rifle that my grandfather used to kill the beast. It's a G.W. Morris, it's a .45 caliber rifle. Very powerful rifle, .45 caliber, would drop down almost anything that he would come across of in the mountains of southwestern Montana. Grizzly bears, mountain lions, wolves, whatever. This would be kind of a stock gun that he would use to, it would never be far out of his reach.
Israel did what people had been trying to do for centuries. He killed the monster by shooting it in the heart.
He saved the animal, and word had spread, and other people came to look at it to see what it was. One of the nearby people was a taxidermist, and he said he would like to have that and put it in his museum.
But in the late 1970s, the museum closed, and the never-identified animal mysteriously went missing. For over 30 years, the embalmed beast stayed hidden, where modern science couldn't test the remains. But in 2007, Jack Kirby, grandson of Israel Hutchins, tracks it down to the back archives of a museum in Idaho, over 200 miles away. He brings it to the Madison Valley Museum, where modern-day scientists are finally getting the opportunity to analyze it. A bullet from Israel's rifle may have ended that animal's life, but the sightings of the creature continue to this day. Yellowstone National Park is an extensive patch of wilderness over 3,000 square miles wide. Much of it is still unexplored and unsurveyed, leaving lots of places where a demon wolf could hide.
I think people in that area believe that its descendants could still be around there. Because it's so remote and a lot of it is still wilderness area, there's a lot of places that a creature could be and very few people would ever see it.
Steve Prim is the field director for the Northern Rockies Conservation and a specialist in large carnivores. He knows all about the area.
Wolves are native to this region, and they're superbly evolved to be hunters. Lone wolves are capable of killing large prey by themselves. The wolf has tremendous bite strength.
He also has a strong interest in the mysterious quadruped that people say still stalks the area.
When I first moved to the Madison Valley, I was curious about the local history of wildlife, what used to be here prior to settlement. I came across some old historic documentation where pioneers had kept journals, and a few of them actually mentioned hyenas among the local fauna here. And that I was curious as to how they got the idea that there might be hyenas around here, so I started digging into that, and then I came across the story of the beast being shot in the upper Madison Valley in 1886.
They used to call it a Rocky Mountain hyena because it was sloping in the rear, and its fur is not quite like a wolf's fur.
Sitting in a glass case in Montana, the beast may seem subdued, but in the wild, its fury is unmatched. But what is it? The speculation has ranged from a monstrous mutant.
Is it a subspecies? Is it a mutant?
Some kind of a mutant wolf bear, because it has round ears. A monster animal.
To a hybrid cross between a wolf and a hyena-like scavenger. Or a form of prehistoric canine, a species so adept to hunting and hiding that it has eluded mankind since the dawn of the modern world.
It's conceivable that a remnant of some long ago or unknown species could survive. In a place like this, where we either have mountains or valley bottoms, we have more places for creatures like that to hide and thrive.
Authorities theorize the demon wolf could be a descendant of the Borophagus, a much older creature not seen in millennia, a phenomenon known as a Lazarus species, in which animals thought to be extinct are rediscovered in modern times. One example is the venomous Solenodon. The last specimen was seen in 1890, and it was discovered again in 2003. Some think the demon wolf is conceivably a primitive canine like the Borophagus.
I think it could have prehistoric origins.
Before man became a hunter and made his way to the top of the food chain, Borophagus was one of the most powerful predators of its time. The hypercarnivores killed prey much larger than themselves. It is believed their teeth could crush bones. Its bites so lethal that it could have taken on the mighty mammoth. The cause of their extinction remains a mystery, leaving open the strong possibility that this creature is still out there, prowling Montana's mountains.
There are places in Montana where the ancient animals still live in the rocks. Some of these animals that haven't lived here for tens of thousands of years. This is not just a legend. People say that they've seen these things. And perhaps that's what the 𝑨𝑩𝑶𝑼𝑻 was. Some sort of archaic animal from the time of the mammoth and the time of the dire wolf and the saber-tooth. And perhaps it survived in some way. And that's what I kind of wonder about.
Could this specimen be the ultimate proof? Montana's demon wolf savaged the Rockies for centuries. And there's gruesome evidence that it could still be out there. December 2005, a ferocious, larger-than-life animal begins a grisly killing spree. By October of 2006, the beast slaughters more than 100 farm animals, ripping whole sheep apart.
When I heard about the story of the wolf killing 120 some livestock, it did strike me as unusual because that is a pretty big killing by one or two wolves.
The creature roams the landscape, attacking animals. Landowners on edge seek out permits to shoot the beast on sight, but the elusive monster never gives them a chance. People suspect the Rocky Mountain demon wolf is back in search of prey. The mysterious mammal may be scientific proof that a violent predator from the past is still on the hunt today.
If you talk to most people who have ranched up there for generations, they will tell you that there's always strange sightings of wolves that don't look like the normal wolf.
Could some descendants of the monstrous prehistoric beast have survived in the mountains of Montana? Experts aim to find out. Betty Hill's dress stands the test of time as one of the most important pieces of evidence from an alien abduction.
To date, there have been 6 laboratories that have tested this dress. No one has actually been able to identify what the pink powder was.
Dr. Phyllis Budinger, an analytical scientist with over 35 years of experience, has the opportunity to forensically test the unknown substance staining the dress Betty wore the night of the abduction.
I was looking for any unusual particulates. The microscope first showed that the dye had been attacked as well as the fiber. And infrared spectroscopy showed that there was mold. The mold covered the stained pieces.
Dr. Budinger finds the substance solely on the outer surface of the dress, confirming it originated from an external source, not Betty. She runs additional tests on a control sample, a dress nearly identical to Betty's. It displays none of the unusual properties of Betty's dress. The material the pink mold grew on is unlike anything anyone has ever seen or tested. And Dr. Budinger has a theory.
I do speculate that these entities had respiration products. They left remnants, and this is what the mold attacked.
If this material is from biological entities, it stands to reason that it might have DNA. And test results could tell us whether it's the first conclusive evidence of extraterrestrial life. The dress Betty Hill wore the night of her abduction may hold the key to telling us what else is out there. Scientists are about to test the dress to determine if there is DNA and if it belongs to an unearthly being.
DNA testing on the various dress parts did find unknown DNA, which was possibly related to aliens. We don't have any alien DNA in the data banks.
But it is also possible that aliens don't have DNA as we understand it.
There was a lot of evidence on the dress that would support various events along the way that happened to Betty. And there was nothing, absolutely nothing in the analysis that would disprove her story. I couldn't find anything.
Dr. Gus Cothran, clinical professor and DNA analyst at Texas A&M University, looks to build on the information obtained in the original tests.
The assumptions about DNA are basically that it is going to be an absolute answer for whatever question you're asking about the identity of an organism. And in most cases, that is true. But if you have an unknown sample that potentially is something new to science, the problem is that we don't know what its DNA sequence would be.
Scientists use modern forensic technology to test the dress for DNA and attempt to determine if the substance on Betty's dress is direct evidence of an alien life form. Remains of the Rocky Mountain demon wolf are uncovered in Montana. Steve Prim, a field researcher and large carnivore expert, inspects the unidentified animal carcass. He studies the skull, dental pattern, and paws, taking measurements to compare this beast to any possible known animals.
The major differences you would see in this animal, comparing it with a wolf, seem to be that it slopes off toward the hindquarters pretty steeply, and the hindquarters are not well developed.
It has an odd-shaped head with a powerful jaw, a massive torso, and its coat is black with faint stripes on its side.
It also kind of has a raggedy tail. The rear end of this animal is pretty small. The feet look a little small. It is different in many respects, though, so it makes me curious about what it might actually be.
Steve has an interesting hypothesis about the animal's unique look.
We do have heavy metals in the water around here, particularly as you get closer and closer to Yellowstone Park and the geothermal areas. It is possible that this specimen has birth defects from exposure, and it would have really greatly affected the development of this animal.
And that heavy metal poisoning could have caused this animal to mutate into the violent, aggressive monster seen today.
It'd be really interesting to find out what this creature actually is. The only way we're going to find out 130 years after it was killed is to do DNA testing on it.
Currently, scientists' ability to take samples and test the specimen's DNA is at a standstill. Legally, both the museums in Idaho and in the Madison Valley claim the beast. Until the courts can decide who the rightful owner is, neither location has permission to approve any testing.
This animal is certainly a curiosity. Could it be a remnant from some long ago species? Until we do DNA testing on it and find out what its genotype is, the beast is going to remain a mystery.
For centuries, the legend of the Rocky Mountain demon wolf has hidden just out of view from science. Sightings continue to this day, so there's a chance the creature is still on the hunt. Hopefully, in time, a DNA test of 𝑦𝑑𝑬𝑹𝑵𝑛𝑦𝑑𝑬𝑹𝑚 animal will be performed. But the full truth may never be known.
There is a possibility that there could be other beasts like this still in the area that have maybe never been seen.
Montana is so remote that, yeah, there's absolutely places where people never get to, so something could still be living in areas that aren't known, that's undiscovered.
Proof of Betty Hill's abduction can be found in the unearthly evidence on her dress. But could the aliens have left actual DNA behind? Coming up, scientists reveal the results of the DNA tests. Betty and Barney Hill were taken by extraterrestrials in 1961. Now, decades later, scientists are about to use modern forensic technology to analyze the only remaining evidence left behind from their abduction, Betty Hill's dress.
That dress is very important because it could hold a clue to what happened that night. So far, so many tests have been done on the dress, but no one has been able to put it together.
Secured and preserved for further scientific examination, it is the only known item on Earth possibly containing proof for the existence of aliens. Experts will DNA test the dress, harvesting the strange particles that may contain biological evidence of these entities from space. Dr. Gus Cothran, DNA analyst at Texas A&M University, will analyze the dress to see if there is alien DNA left behind. If so, he will attempt to perform mitochondrial DNA tests on the fabric. Mitochondrial DNA analysis can be successful for investigating older, degraded evidence that contains very little biological material, like Betty's dress.
What that involves is getting a sequence of the mitochondrial DNA. You amplify a region, then blast that against all the sequences that are in the gene bank, which contains thousands and thousands of DNA sequences. And it will tell you whether you get a match, what that match is to, and it will also then tell you what the closest thing is if it doesn't get a 100% match.
Using genetic markers in the DNA, Dr. Cawthron will attempt to identify if it belongs to a known or unknown species. The initial spectrophotometer readings, which determine if DNA is present in a sample, find no DNA products. They run PCR amplifications, sometimes called molecular photocopying, to amplify possible DNA fragments, but they have no success. Whatever the material was on the dress, it contained no viable DNA, which could mean the DNA degraded. However, another possibility must be considered, that aliens simply do not have DNA.
It's important that we look at this dress, and any evidence that comes forward may be proof of the existence that we are being visited by entities from another planet.
So, what would you have done in that scene? Be honest and comment below.
There's too many worlds out there. Somewhere there's got to be life on them.
Different environments lead to different chemistry, and conceivably, the basis for life on other planets may not include DNA. They may use a different encoding system entirely that science has not yet identified.
Are we alone in the universe? That's a very big question, right? And it's something that I think has fascinated us ever since we have become aware of the fact that we are a very small planet in a very, very large universe. Is there life on other planets? I think it's almost certain that there is.
In the Betty and Barney Hill abduction case, you have 2 eyewitnesses, you have forensic evidence, you take all of that into focus and you come up with proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Something very incredible, something terrifying affected these people.
New discoveries constantly challenge our beliefs about the universe, and the fact that the material does not match anything on Earth strongly suggests the pink powder is not from our planet.
It is possible that there is still evidence embedded in this dress that science simply does not have the technology to analyze at this point. Perhaps someday, some scientists will be able to identify what caused the staining on Betty's dress.
But until science can identify just what it is and who left it behind, Betty's dress will remain in the University of New Hampshire's collections, waiting for an answer.